Penguin Random House Audio presents Homicide, A Year on the Killing Streets by David Simon. Read by Reed Diamond.
This is the job. You sit behind a government-issued metal desk on the 6th of 10 floors in a gleaming, steel-framed death trap with poor ventilation, dysfunctional air conditioning, and enough free-floating asbestos to pad the devil's own jumpsuit. You eat $2.50 pizza specials and Italian cold cuts with extra hots from Marco's on Exeter Street while watching reruns of Hawaii Five-0 on the communal 19-inch set with insubordinate horizontal hold. You answer the phone on the second or third bleep because Baltimore abandoned its AT&T equipment as a cost-saving measure, and the new phone system doesn't ring so much as it emits metallic, sheep-like sounds. If a police dispatcher is on the other end of the call, you write down an address, the time, and the dispatcher's unit number on a piece of scrap paper or the back of a used 3x5 pawn shop submission card. Then you beg or barter the keys to one of a half-dozen unmarked Chevrolet Cavaliers, grab your gun, a notepad, a flashlight, and a pair of white rubber gloves and drive to the correct address where, in all probability, a uniformed police officer will be standing over a cooling human body. You look at that body. You look at that body as if it were some abstract work of art. Stare at it from every conceivable point of view in search of deeper meanings and textures. Why, you ask yourself, is this body here? What did the artist leave out? What did he put in? What was the artist thinking of? What the hell is wrong with this picture? You look for reasons. Overdose? Heart attack? Gunshot wounds? Cutting? Are those defense wounds on the left hand? Jewelry? Wallet? Pockets turned inside out? Rigor mortis? Lividity? Why is there a blood trail with droplets spattering in a direction away from the body? You walk around the edges of the scene looking for spent bullets, casings, blood droplets. You get a uniform to canvass the houses or businesses nearby, or if you want it done right, you go door to door yourself, asking questions that uniforms might never think to ask. Then you use everything in the arsenal in the hope that something, anything, will work. The crime lab technicians recover weapons, bullets, and casings for ballistic comparisons. If you're indoors, you have the techs take prints from doors and door handles, furniture and utensils. You examine the body and its immediate surroundings for loose hairs or fibers on the off chance that the trace evidence lab might actually put down a case now and then. You look for any other signs of disturbance, anything that doesn't appear to conform to its surroundings. If something strikes you, a loose pillowcase, a discarded beer can, you have a technician take it down to evidence control as well. Then you have the techs measure key distances and photograph the entire scene from every conceivable angle. You sketch the death scene in your own notebook, using a crude stick man for the victim, marking the original location of every piece of furniture and every piece of evidence recovered. Assuming that the uniforms upon arriving at the scene were sharp enough to grab anyone within sight and send them downtown, you then go back to your office and throw as much street corner psychology as you can at the people who found the body. You do the same thing with a few others who knew the victim, who rented a room to the victim, who employed the victim, who fucked, fought, or fired drugs with the victim. Are they lying? Of course they're lying. Everyone lies. Are they lying more than they ordinarily would? Probably. Why are they lying? Do their half-truths conform to what you know from the crime scene, or is it complete and unequivocal bullshit? Who should yell at first? Who should you scream at the loudest? Who gets threatened with an accessory to murder charge? Who gets the speech about leaving the interrogation room as either a witness or a suspect? Who gets offered the excuse, the out? The suggestion that this poor bastard needed to be murdered, that anyone in their circumstance would have murdered him, that they only killed the bastard because he provoked them, that they didn't mean it, then the gun went off accidentally, that they only fired in self-defense. If all goes well, you lock someone up that night. If all goes not so well, you take what you know and run with it in the most promising direction, kicking a few more facts loose in the hope that something will give. When nothing gives, you wait a few weeks for the lab work to come back with a positive on the ballistics or the fibers or the semen. When the lab reports come back negative, you wait for the phone to ring. And when the phone doesn't ring, you let a little piece of you die. Then you go back to your desk and wait for another call from the dispatcher, who sooner or later will send you out to look at another body. Because in a city with 240 murders a year, there will always be another body. More often than not, the murderers left behind living witnesses or even brag to someone about the crime. In a surprising number of cases, the killer, particularly one unfamiliar with the criminal justice system, can be manipulated into a confession in the interrogation rooms. On rare occasions, a latent print taken from a drinking glass or knife hilt will match up with someone's print card on the print track computer. But most detectives can count on one hand the number of cases made by lab work. A good cop goes to the crime scene, gathers the available evidence, talks to the right people, and with any luck discovers the murderer's most glaring mistakes. But in that alone, there is talent and instinct enough. If the pieces do fall into place, some unlucky citizen gets a pair of silver bracelets and a wagon ride to an overcrowded tier of the Baltimore City Jail. There he sits as his trial date is postponed for 8 or 9 months, or however long it takes your witnesses to change addresses 2 or 3 times. Then, an assistant state's attorney who has every intention of maintaining a better-than-average conviction rate so that he can one day come to rest in a better-than-average criminal law firm, calls you on the telephone. He assures you that this is the weakest homicide indictment he has ever had the misfortune to prosecute, so weak that he cannot believe it to be the work of a legitimate grand jury, and could you please round up the brain-dead cattle you call witnesses and bring them down for pretrial interviews, because this thing is actually going to court on Monday. Unless, of course, he can convince the defense attorney to swallow manslaughter with all but 5 years suspended. If the case isn't plea bargained, dismissed, or placed on the inactive docket for an indefinite period of time, if by some perverse twist of fate it becomes a trial by jury, you will then have the opportunity of sitting on the witness stand and reciting under oath the facts of the case. A brief moment in the sun that clouds over with the appearance of the aforementioned defense attorney, who, at worst, will accuse you of perjuring yourself in a gross injustice, or, at best, accuse you of conducting an investigation so incredibly slipshod that the real killer has been allowed to roam free. Once both sides have loudly argued the facts of the case, a jury of 12 men and women picked from computer lists of registered voters in one of America's most undereducated cities will go to a room and begin shouting. If these happy people manage to overcome the natural impulse to avoid any act of collective judgment, they just may find one human being guilty of murdering another. Then you can go to Cher's Pub at Lexington and Guilford, where that selfsame assistant state's attorney, if possessed of any human qualities at all, will buy you a bottle of domestic beer. And you drink it, because in a police department of about 3,000 sworn souls, you are one of 36 investigators entrusted with the pursuit of that most extraordinary of crimes, the theft of a human life. You speak for the dead. You avenge those lost to the world. Your paycheck may come from fiscal services, but goddamn it, after 6 beers you can pretty much convince yourself that you work for the Lord himself. If you're not as good as you should be, you'll be gone within a year or 2, transferred to fugitive or auto theft or check and fraud at the other end of the hall. If you are good enough, you will never do anything else as a cop that matters this much. Homicide is the major leagues, the center ring, the show. It always has been. When Cain threw a cap into Abel, you don't think the big guy told a couple of fresh uniforms to go down and work up the prosecution report. Hell no. He sent for a fucking detective. And it will always be that way, because the homicide unit of any urban police force has for generations been the natural habitat of that rare
Sample complete. Ready to continue?